Hey, what's up guys? Tony here, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tony. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about what is an athlete. So obviously this commentary is inspired by the fact that the US State Department has now decided to recognize gamers, professional gamers, as athletes. And this is for purposes of work visas, and I imagine tax purposes and all the other things that, quote, professional athletes need to deal with. I kind of wanted to wait on this topic, but I don't know, I was feeling inspired this morning. And it's like, let's go define what a professional is, because a lot of people are just like, well, they're gamers, this is weird. But a professional in the most simplest of senses is somebody who gets paid to do whatever they're doing. So professional athletes like baseball or football players, they're paid to play baseball or football or soccer or European football, we'll call it that. Tennis, golf, etc., etc. Horse racing, real racing. The list goes on, and it goes into, away from sports, it goes into like photography or art, music, landscaping, I guess. You could put anything in there. It's if you're paid to do whatever, you're a professional at that. There's when you really get in, you start to define it and get very specific, then you can kind of determine who's a professional what, or who's more of a professional. Take YouTube, for example. Technically speaking, I'm a quote professional YouTuber, although my level of success is not as high as those other people who have, 1 million, 2 million, 4 million plus subscribers, or even someone who has 100,000 or 20,000. They're more successful than I am in the grand scheme of things, but because I'm getting paid to do YouTube, I classify technically as a professional YouTuber, although I don't really think of it that way. It's then when people start thinking about, the context in which a professional is applied. Maybe, Tony, you're not really a professional because you only do it all the time, post a lot, so you're not really a professional. But, technically speaking, I am, because I get paid for it. So, gamers, I was really amazed, and it's no surprise to me that people are paid to play video games. It's been going on for a while now. But the one thing that surprised me when I went to MLG Anaheim is the scope in which gaming has become its own industry. It really has, because when I was there was not only the game setups. You had Starcraft, you had Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and then you had League of Legends. And Black Ops and League of Legends were the huge ones, and Starcraft 2 was the small little one pushed off to the side. But you had just sponsored by Turtle Beach was there. Dr. Pepper was a major sponsor. There was a school called Full Sail University there in Florida. They're probably there to take people's money and give them, I don't know, there might be some full screen or Full Sail people who watch this video who are like, oh, it's actually a good college. So I can't really knock it because I don't know anything about it. But they're a university a private university that specializes in making people professionals in the entertainment industry, be that video producers, musicians, audio producers. I think it runs the gamut. Anyway, so then there's that, and then there's a handful of other sponsors that I don't really remember off the top of my head. I think Pretzels brand or something was one of them, because there were these girls, they were walking around in these skimpy little outfits throwing pretzels at people. But I realized that the gaming industry is a big industry in itself now. It is this huge thing. It's big money. It really is. And so it doesn't really surprise me that the State Department has decided to classify gamers now as professional athletes. If you're a professional gamer, you want to come to the United States to train here, you can do that now. You can get those visas that other athletes can get. And so that's what it is. Now, the problem, though, is a lot of people are starting to go gamers are not athletes. And I remember vividly, Tim posted that he's like, I'm sorry, 400-pound kids playing video games are not athletes. And so I can understand Tim's frustration, because like Tim, I have always been athletic. I played baseball all my life, played some football, a little bit of basketball, but basketball was more with friends. So was football. Football was with friends, and basketball. So I got out, I played a handful of sports, but baseball was really my main sport. And so I understand the frustration, because it's I'm an athlete. I know what it's like to compete. I know what it's like to use your body to play a sport, to give it your all, to walk away with cuts and bruises and broken fingers and broken toes. I get that. I get that. But Tim sort of fell for that normal reactionary insult, going to the stereotypical gamer being 400 pounds. And when I was at MLG Anaheim, I noticed that overweight gamers are kind of hard to come by. I was surprised, to be honest, because I've been to MLG twice now, both times in Anaheim, and both times I didn't really notice a plethora of obese people. If anyone there, if the overweight crowd was there, mostly the overweight crowd was within the fans. The gamers themselves are all younger people, 18 to 22 maybe, or probably younger, maybe like 16, 17 to 22 or so. That's like the age range for MLG. And most of those people are somewhat fit. I'm not going to say like they're in great shape because I have no idea, but you look at them and they don't look overweight or obese or anything like that. They have like a quote normal figure. Maybe because they're young and their bodies burn off calories like going out of style. I didn't see the 400-pound gamers. And then I remember seeing this documentary. It was about Starcraft players. Like this it was on YouTube. It was it's this guy who is the fastest Starcraft player, or the best Korean Starcraft player or whatever. Anyway, so he's got this coach, and they have this huge team, and they have a training facility where they play Starcraft like 8 to 10 hours a day. But the coach has the whole, he's Korean, so they have that Asian, I'm generalizing by the way, they have the whole Eastern philosophy of mind and body. So they had this guy who, they're showing this guy who's the world's best StarCraft 2 player. Not only is he playing StarCraft to train, but he's also going to the gym for like 2 hours a day to train, because this coach had the philosophy of mind and body. So the idea that gamers are overweight, unfit people kind of goes out the window for me, at least. It might still be there for you. But then I started thinking about other sports, because we think about other athletes is just sort of like, yeah, those are guys athletes. And the one that I keep gravitating towards is drivers, like NASCAR drivers, or race car drivers in general. And I had a handful of people argue this point with me, because they're like, well, no, they're handling high G-forces. They need to be physically fit to tolerate the G-forces and all the other forces that are applied on the car when they're driving. I'm like, yeah, I understand that now, but I mean, if you think back to the 70s, the 80s, I don't think guys were all that fit. I mean, you could see the fitness craze sort of coming out of the 1970s and the 1980s with the steroids, the heightened steroids usage in sports. Of course, in the 90s and 2000s, we had creatine in the 90s and, HGH now in the 2000s. So there's been this evolution within athletes to become bigger, stronger, faster. Maybe it's always been there, but it didn't become super popular until like the late 70s and the 80s, when like Arnold Schwarzenegger was blowing up the world with his muscles and stuff, right? So the same sort of philosophy could have been applied to drivers. Like if you talk to a football player, a baseball player, or a tennis player, or a golfer. I mean, is a golfer really an athlete? I mean, golfers will say, yeah, I'm an athlete. I got to train every day. You got to do all this stuff. I mean, they hit a ball, they walk towards it, and then they hit it again, they walk towards it, or they get in a cart and they drive towards it. So it's like, well, how much of an athlete are they? I guess that's when you start to break it down. But going back to drivers, if someone was like, yes, this person is an athlete, yes or no, and you're like, I don't know, because they just drive a car. Like thinking in 1970s, 1980s sort of terms, you wouldn't really consider them an athlete because they're just driving a car. Now you would think of them like with F1, NASCAR, and a whole bunch of other races. I mean, these guys are putting a lot of forces on their body, and they have to be physically fit to handle it. So yeah, you would say yes, they have to go out, they have to be fit, they have to be healthy, they have to be strong, everything that an athlete needs, like good hand-eye coordination, good reactionary skills, mental discipline, plus a physical aspect to it. So when you start to look at professional gamers, and when you really look at them and you're like, wow, they're really, like say StarCraft or Call of Duty or whatever, they're fast. League of Legends, they're fast, they think fast, they do things fast, so they've got great hand-eye coordination, they have got good reactionary skills, they make good decisions mostly. I mean, people make bad decisions all the time, but there's this situational awareness. There's a lot of aspects. The only aspect they really don't have is a physical form part of being an athlete. Now, to wrap it up, do I think that gamers are athletes? No. But, I mean, I understand why the State Department is doing it. They're classifying them as athletes. But I don't think of them as an athlete in the traditional sense of the word. However, as esports evolve, I think the definition of an athlete is going to change. I think people are going to become more accepting of gamers as athletes, professional gamers as athletes. Because the more you see gaming broadcasted on an international scale, maybe you'll see it on real TV. Once it hits real TV, it's no longer streaming. I think that's when you're going to start to see more people accept gamers as athletes. And I'm going to think about like the World Poker Tour, because that's on TV. Like, people watch poker on TV. I don't understand. I mean, I used to. It was sort of a fad in the early 2000s. Watch poker. Everyone seemed to get into Texas Hold'em. But you wouldn't consider those guys athletes. I mean, they're casino junkies, kind of. They sit there and they play cards, they drink, and they eat. And they're, for the most part, some of them are kind of overweight, but some of them are fit looking, healthy looking. And you wouldn't really consider those people athletes because they're card players, but they're professional card players. So that's where you start to get that split. And they're also on TV, and they're usually on ESPN of all things. You're just like, what? Is poker a sport now? So you start to get these sort of diverging thoughts about what is a sport, what is an athlete, how do we define it. So basically in the comment section below, I'd like to know, what are your feelings about this, about athletes, in general? Do you think gamers belong in this sort of pantheon of athletes? Are they athletes, yes or no? That's what I'm really kind of after today, because it is a tough call, because you could argue it both ways. The only problem is there's a physical form missing, and unless they make, say, VR machines like they did that big Battlefield 3 dome, I would consider gamers athletes if everyone had their own little dome and they were running around, shooting, crawling, doing all this stuff within the game that they were playing. Yeah, then sure, you'd be a damn athlete, because you'd have to be to participate in this. But as I see it right now, and then my definition could change later as gaming becomes more accepted, like I said, or professional gaming becomes more watched and more accepted in greater society, I think right now professional gamers are not athletes. They are that professional gamers. So anyways, let me know in the comment section, okay guys? So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I shall talk to you later.